wake up with the sun and struggle through the day. In every passing moment, watch your lifetime slip away. And never wonder why we let it go this far.
Look at all those chickens. Did you see the size of that chicken? You guys ever seen Young Guns 2? They eat them, they drink some peyote tea out in the desert. And they're tripping balls out there, and the guy is like, "Do you see the size of that chicken?" It's pretty funny. He's talking to his horse, and he's like, "Hey dog, did you see the size of that chicken?" It's a must-see. Oh, thank you. I like my canvas. It used to be in front of my desk, but it made a better backdrop for you guys. Adam, I haven't had a chance to look into that, man. I want to so bad. I really do. Everybody has so many good things for me to look into right now. Adam is talking about this Aboriginal DNA anomaly that, not this Adam, but other Adam on here. This DNA anomaly where some of these Aboriginal people have like 2 fewer pairs of chromosomes or something like that, which is really crazy interesting. And these people are really disoriented and stuff, and like they don't fit into our reality very well because their DNA has something to do. It's just, alluding to the fact or the theory that DNA has everything to do with how we perceive reality, which is something that I'm a big believer in. So that's really interesting. Yeah, the Pyramid Code. The Pyramid Code is a phenomenal documentary. Yeah, that's the one with John Anthony West and all those guys and Robert Schoch and everybody. That's a great documentary. It's like, is it like the 6? It's like a 6-part series. Is that the one you're talking about? Because if that's the one, that's an amazing documentary on Netflix. I've watched that thing. You can watch like all 6 or 8 episodes of that like 10 times. I think we probably have at this point. And that's just, you continue to learn new stuff about balancing the masculine and feminine and stuff like that, especially. Not to mention getting an idea of what some of the ancient technology utilized or produced by the pyramids might have been like. But welcome everybody. Welcome so much to the Shamanic Philosophy Podcast. So excited to be here with you. I'm recording a podcast while we're doing this, as usual. And so if you want to check it out, make sure you go to the YouTube channel, which is linked in my bio here on Instagram. The Facebook page is being worked on now. JC's got that in the works. So make sure you let him know to get on it. We need the Facebook page. Make that happen. But in the meantime, the YouTube channel's got to be built up. We got to get those subscribers up like we do here on Instagram, and that way we can start doing these live feeds on YouTube directly, because we're being censored by Instagram. They won't let us save these live feeds anymore, which is a major bummer, but we will overcome. So tonight I wanted to talk about calibrating your goals and your values, asking for the right things, and paying attention to your progress along the way. It occurred to me that everybody is at a different point in their journey in life, but some people are at the point where they've learned that setting goals is important. And then like there's another step where you start setting like overly aggressive goals, or the wrong goals, or goals that are calibrated to the wrong set of values. And I realize there are a lot of good people that are trying hard that have their goals misaligned. And your goals come from your values. In one way or another, your goals are always going to be a derivative of your values. And then your outcome is going to be a product of those goals and the values that drive them, and then the effort and abilities that you put forward. But we set goals based on what our values are. And so I thought that it would be important to look at values first. Where are our values? I've got some friends that are kind of, they're a little materialistic. They're really, really concerned about having the nicest vehicle they can, the newest vehicle they can, the nicest clothes they can, the nicest stuff, and the nicest things. And I know that in their heart they're good people. but I see them struggle in their lives because they have they've aligned their values with materialism and cultural status, and that's all good and well. Sorry, I got distracted there. Hey guys, I'm just so you know, I'm gonna try to ignore the live feed for just a moment and get this going, and then we'll do a Q&A after, because you guys are way too funny and you distract the shit out of me. You're the worst. Where can one sign up for the Illuminati? Asking for a friend. I hate you guys so much. Not really. I love you. But I realize that a lot of people have this, they're wrapped up in some amount of materialism. And I think it's probably not by coincidence that these same friends of mine are also kind of averse to going out into nature. Like, they don't like to go fishing. They don't like to go bird watching. They don't like to go hiking. They don't like to go camping. They don't like to go walk around barefoot in the grass. And I tend to think, the more that I look at this, that the more that you go out into nature, the more it allows you to align your personal set of values with your natural values, your conscious values with what your natural set of values is that you were born with. And if you guys ever watch this show, The Last Alaskans, I talk about it a lot, not so much on the podcast, but with my friends and stuff like that. And The Last Alaskans is not just one of these run-of-the-mill Alaska shows that you see getting thrown all over the place. I know for years, all these different TV networks were coming out with a different Alaska show. And this is a horse of a different color. It's a show of a whole different caliber. It's a really authentic show. It seems really genuine and sincere. And I know that there's a lot of things that the production team did to make sure that the show came across authentically, like shooting 10 times the amount of footage they would for a normal show, which takes a lot more film and a lot more stuff, but you can chop it down and edit it and make, you get the good stuff when it's there. And when you shoot less film, you have to start coaching people and telling people what to say and how to say it. You do 4 or 5 takes and you get them to, you take bits and pieces from each one, and by the end of it, you're getting them to say this whole thing that they sort of coached you into saying, that comes from all of your different takes. So it can feel a little bit scripted and inauthentic. But The Last Alaskans is very different. It's a beautiful show, and these people live up above the Arctic Circle in a place that is completely secluded. They're like 300 or 400 miles away from the nearest house, right? Or maybe the nearest road even. And I realized that these people have they're living a life that is aligned with the most naturalistic set of values they possibly could. It's like a guy and his wife living out in a cabin. Like they're all couples, It's like a guy and his wife, And there's like 7 different cabins that they shoot this film around, or this show. And I think a couple of them had kids, a couple of them didn't. But they in the show, you see people who have their values aligned with nature. And it's just a guy and his wife, or a guy and his wife and their kids, or whatever. And they go out, they walk in the trees, they watch the animals, they get to learn all the habits of the animals and all the routines of the animals and the personality of the animals and all that stuff. They get to know the land, how it moves and what the sun does and what it does to the plants and all the different kinds of plants and all that stuff. What the fish do, when they swim, where they swim, how they swim, where the bears eat, They know what a bear smells like when they're, a mile away. They can smell a bear. All of their senses are heightened and sensitized because they're not wrapped up in the environment that we're in. And I thought, how different is their set of values than someone that lives in town, here in the lower 48. I'm in the Dallas area. We've got people here from New York City. We got people here from LA. We have people from Indonesia and Australia and everywhere. But if you're a part of Western culture, specifically Western culture, and probably some others, then your values are going to be aligned in a very different way than someone who is living out in the bush on their own with just them and their spouse. Oh no, my camera, that just happened. Oh, my camera crapped out. That's okay, guys. We'll keep going anyway because I love you. But the system of values that a person has, whenever they're wrapped up in culture and materialism and all that stuff, it becomes a whole different animal. And you start pursuing these goals and values of having a nicer house and living in a nicer neighborhood and driving a nicer car, having a nicer purse. And what that does is it makes you pursue money. It makes you pursue money. And what that does is it makes you accept jobs that you wouldn't take. Just imagine trying to talk to one of these last Alaskan people, and they, you go tell them like, hey, I want to hire you to come work on computers and get bitched at by people all day long, or to go flip burgers and get bitched at by somebody making minimum wage all day long. If you try to talk somebody, one of these last Alaskan people, into doing just about anything that most of us do for a living, they tell you to fuck off, because their values are aligned with what their natural values are. They need to feel nature around them. They need to feel the fresh air. They need to hear the birds. That's what their natural values are, because that's how we as humans are sort of programmed to be, just like every other animal. But instead, we lock ourselves in cubicles and cubic offices, and we sit in badly postured desks and chairs all day long. And we deal with people in very unnatural situations, right? Whether we're flipping burgers on a daily basis or sitting behind a desk or whatever you're doing, it's not natural, right? We're the only animals in the world that have manipulated our environment to the point that we have so many things, so many objects, so many pieces of materials. And this leads to a whole different system of values, because then it starts to become, I always start from the starting point of like the ultimate primitive sort of, native or aboriginal person living off the land, or even a last Alaskan type of person. Once you go from living off the land and just surviving being your prime driver for happiness, then you go start collecting beads, or seashells or rocks or whatever. And then you start competing with other people to see who has the nicest stack of rocks or the nicest necklace or whatever. And in the very, very distant past, I think that it's pretty clear that we had psychedelics in those tribal settings. We had psychedelics to keep us regulated and keep us all connected and keep us aware of the connective tissue that holds us all together. And we used them ritually. We used them on an ongoing periodic basis. So it's very, very different nowadays that we have this unbridled materialism without the assistance of something like psychedelics to break down our egos and break down our sense of self and break down our sense of disconnect, and to rebuild that connection between us as people. We're so distracted by the material things that we have in our lives that becomes what we strive for. So I realized a while back that, I was setting goals for myself that were really oriented toward material aims and objectives. And once I backed off of that and stopped giving a shit, and then I immediately realized, like, if I don't need this new $80,000 truck, then I guess I don't maybe need to have this, this job or this client or this particular contract or whatever that is going to give me the extra money I need to have this thing. And that client or that job or whatever it is in your life, that revenue stream that you have that's trying to get you to your materialistic ends, once you realize that you don't need to accomplish that materialistic goal. I mean, think about what people do when they go out and buy a house that's too expensive for them, and they have to make an extra $1,000 a month, So they take a job that pays $12,000 a month more, and they hate it. So I was able to dial my business back and kind of part ways with some clients that weren't really good, fruitful, positive people for me, but they paid the bills. And I dropped a lot of my materialistic aims, and then I became a lot happier person. And then as a result of that, being happier gave me more energy and more time to go do the stuff that I wanted to do, whether it was talking to you guys or working on my books or my music or artwork or doing whatever, spending time with my kids. So I started spending more time with my kids and doing artwork and all those things. And then I had more energy, and my brain started to work better. And then I found that I started coming up with ways to make money that that were a lot more conducive to the new lifestyle that I had, to having a more realistic lifestyle. And I think what happens is we get stuck on the responsibility train, and we marry ourselves to these responsibilities that we think that we can't detach ourselves from after a while. And we just think that our wife needs this $2,000 purse or a Range Rover, or we need to have this $1 million house. And we get so caught up in the culture of it. But when you go through ego death for the first time, and you realize that you don't need any of that, it's just that we become so attached to our cultural image and our cultural role. Not everybody, but a lot of us do. We become so attached to it that we think that we are inseparable from it. And it's sort of our cultural alter ego, right? It's a whole different version of ourselves from who we really are. And it's that version of us. For me, it was like I wanted to go out and buy expensive watches. And I told myself that I wasn't materialistic. And by my own definition, even, maybe I wasn't super materialistic for wanting a $5,000 watch. But for me, it was because I was surrounded with people that I knew would take me more seriously if I was wearing a $5,000 watch and a $2,000 suit sitting at the table. So I always told myself, like, I'm not materialistic. I don't want this watch. I don't give a shit about this watch. But I need to have it because I'm the youngest guy in the room, and if they're going to take me seriously, this is what I need to do. Forgive me, guys. I got to have a drink real fast. And guys, the chemtrails are getting me. The chemtrails are getting me big time. I can feel it in my chest. And then so I realized that, like, I wasn't really materialistic. I didn't feel a burning desire to go. I didn't like go to sleep and dream of nice watches, and all that stuff, nice suits. I just needed it to fit in, where I was. So then what I decided, when this whole process of waking up and getting out of that place in my life, whenever that started, I just decided that I wasn't going to be part of a way of life where that was what I needed to do to make it work. And that I guess is really the root message of this whole discussion here is don't put yourself into situations where your goals are so misaligned with your natural set of values that you make yourself unhappy to accomplish those goals. Because that's the biggest thing. A lot of people, when I look around and see, most of the really unhappy people I see are unhappy because of materialism. Like, they're specifically unhappy because of materialism. And if they could just find a way to pull themselves out of those materialistic, out of that sort of that mindset, then they could be a lot happier. And the other side of that coin is, I think that this is one of these spirals where the more materialistic you are, the less you want to be in nature. And the less you go out in nature, the more materialistic you're able to become. And the more materialistic you become, the less you want to be in nature. And it's just one of these many spirals I talk about all the time that feeds, the problem feeds back into itself. And it just grows and exacerbates. But the opposite is true as well, is that if you go out into nature, right, it always starts with a decision. Every change, guys, every change starts with a decision. And you may not be able to sit here right now and just tell yourself that you're no longer going to be materialistic. And you can't just sit there and tell yourself you're no longer going to be unhappy. You're no longer going to do any of this stuff. You can't just tell yourself that. But what you can do is you can say, I am going to go outside in nature today. That's something I'm going to do. I can meditate today. That's something I'm going to do. That's a decision that you can actively make. And that spiral will begin there. You can't say, I wish that I was 30 pounds lighter, or I could bench press 50 pounds more. But what you can do is say, I'm going to make a healthier eating decision today. And that starts a spiral. I'm going to go to the gym today. I'm going to go for a bike ride today. making that first active step toward starting a positive spiral is really is the only thing that you can do. I say it all the time. It's always now. That Sam Harris video on YouTube, everyone should look at. It's a 6-minute video. It's always now by Sam Harris. But what you do in this moment is so important. I posted a video of Jordan Peterson on my Instagram profile earlier, and he was talking about this spiral. I love Jordan Peterson. I've never posted a video of him on Instagram, and I've never seen him talk about this particular construct or concept or idea. But he was literally describing spirals. It was like two of my favorite things, Jordan Peterson and spirals. It was like, at the same time. I had to repost it. But go out in nature and help yourself realign your values. Go out in nature and do that. You would be amazed at to what extent you can change your life by getting out in nature and watching how everything works in the natural world. And I can't fully explain it. Third Eye Seeker, what's up, man? I can't fully explain it. Well, there's something about just seeing the natural way that things work when you're out in nature that changes the way that you look at everything. You see the trees growing, you see the grass growing, you see birds flying and all this stuff, and you just immerse yourself in the womb of the world, of the earth for an hour or whatever. And then you go back into society and you turn on the TV and you see these commercials that are upselling you to bigger, better TVs and bigger, better SUVs and bigger, better computers. And you're just like, it seems so foreign. It seems so foreign to you to be fed all of this materialistic mumbo jumbo when you've been out in nature for some amount of time, you know? And that would be one of the biggest things that I could tell you is just to get outside. Go see some nature. Go fill your heart full of the breath of the world, and everything will start to change. Because I like I say, everything in your life starts with you. It starts as a spiral coming out of what you have in your mind right here. There are so many people. I was just talking about archetypes last night on the podcast, and I was talking about on Parks and Recreation, the character Jerry Gergich or Gary Gergich, whatever they want to call him. And he's like the most positive guy in the show, but he's always getting made fun of, and everybody always laughs at him and everything else. But he goes home to like this beautiful wife and 3 beautiful daughters, and he's got an amazing personal life and super happy marriage and all that. And, you know, I was explaining to my kids and then on the podcast yesterday, what is the truth to be found in the story of Jerry Gergich and his character, that archetype. And it's the idea that you, when you live your life in a way that you don't take anyone too seriously, if someone makes fun of you or laughs at you or whatever, you don't have to let it bother you. You don't have to let some asshole bother you. You don't have to give them real estate. And then you don't have to just sit there and think, well, I shouldn't just let them get away with being a jerk to people all day long. You know, that's how I used to be. I was like, you know, I saw myself as like the balancing agent of the universe. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's going to go around being a dick, like I'm going to be the guy that puts a fucking stop to it. You know what I mean? But you can totally change that by handling it in a whole different way. Handling it with love, like sincere love and sincere understanding. But again, that takes some understanding of your own to get where they're coming from and to be able to remove yourself from that, from that place where you feel like you're being attacked or whatever. But if you do that, then, you know, you're going to come home like what happens in the show, that archetype, that character comes home to a whole lot more of a nice, distracted by Wolfman there, as always, reading comments here. But you can take that home with you, you know. You can have a beautiful, awesome personal life if you don't take the other shit seriously. And that's entirely up to you to do. So get out in nature. A lot of us make decisions in our lives and misalign our goals because we are striving for things that are not really, you know, at their heart, they're not what should make us happy. We're trying to please something else. And that's the gist of it. You know, I've got friends that will go out and drive themselves crazy so that they can have a car that that costs $300 or $400 a month more, and then have have whatever other material habits in their life that they like to maintain that cost a few $100s more. And like I say, you could very easily rack up 10 or 12 or 15, 20 grand a year easily, like without even trying, right? I mean, that's not very much money at all on just having a little bit of extra materialism in your lifestyle. And imagine what you do to your life to be able to afford that stuff. The job that you will work to make that extra 10 or whatever, even $5,000 a year, 10 grand a year, 15 grand a year. You'll do a lot to be able to afford that lifestyle. A deal that I made with my clients, starting about 7 or 8 months ago, 9 months ago, was that I was no longer going to deal with bullshit for lots of money. The Adam will deal with all my bullshit if I pay him enough item off the menu. You know what I mean? All gone. That's where you got to get. Reduce the amount of money that you need, the amount of material shit that you need, and you will necessarily start looking inward more and looking at your family more. I story the other day of a friend of ours who went to go visit someone, and there was a single mom with her little kids in her little apartment, and when one of our friends went to go visit her, I was like, how was she doing? And she's like, oh, she was great. She was chasing her kids around, had a superhero mask on. She was shooting her kids with Nerf guns and all this stuff. And then they played school for like an hour and a half, and they were doing math together. And then the kids get to pretend to be teachers and stuff like that. These are the things that we overlook whenever we're being materialistic. We're too busy working extra hours at our job so that we can pay for the stuff that our kids don't need to impress people we don't like. And by and large, we're giving ourselves things that are, in pretty much every case, most of the time, they're going to be feeding back into the perpetuation and the exacerbation of that same problem that started the whole thing to begin with. Because if you you'll work some really shitty job that you don't like just to make more money so that you can buy an Escalade, well, then that Escalade breaks, and then you're gonna, you've got a lot more expensive repair job to pay for. So you end up locking yourself into this cycle of responsibility, hopping on the responsibility train and getting stuck on it. And that's the key there, is you can't be doing that. Getting out of that cycle of responsibility and moving yourself to a place of simplicity and self-acceptance, where the only person whose affirmation that you need is your own. And then you become a person who wants to help other people affirm themselves in healthy ways. Not that I often get stuck in this situation anymore at all, which I'm very thankful for. But sometimes when I find myself getting stuck into a conversation with some of the people that I used to run around with, and sometimes I still have to visit with clients and stuff that are a little more this way. But friends-wise, I've got the best friends in the world, so I don't really have that issue with my friends, but certainly with colleagues and clients and stuff, where people are just really, really wrapped up in stuff, And it can almost be sickening to the point that I don't want to even try to give you an anecdote or anything like that, but just people who are really wrapped up in the kind of car that they drive and the kind of suit they have, the watch they have, the material accomplishments that they've seen, or that they want to, the aspirations they have. It's so foreign to a person who has tried to achieve some amount of balance between, the material world and the natural world, the spiritual world. And it makes me realize that much more, that the people that we see that are unhappy are largely unhappy because of their failure to, or their inability to fulfill, or to meet their goals in the material world. Because if your goals are all oriented on your natural values, if that's really where your goals are, it's kind of hard to not be happy. Kind of hard to be upset with yourself when the only goal that you've set is to try to be happy and accept yourself and accept your loved ones and to try to be a beacon of happiness for everybody around you. So the bottom line is, go out in nature. I'm sorry, guys, I'm sitting here reading through everything. It's so tough. Go Go out in nature, man, and help people to see this too. Help people to... Sorry, my microdose just hit me. I forgot I took a little microdose of shrooms, and it just hit me. I totally went blank for a second. I was under the weather, and I needed to get some crud out of my lungs, and nothing's better for that than taking about a gram of mushrooms. Damn. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast, and we'll do a Q&A. But as far as the thematic, topical part of the podcast, that is it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll move on to the Q&A now. Shroom man. Sorry, guys. So here's Tesla's deal. I could do... So the question is basically for the podcast recording later is, what is my view on Nikola Tesla? Was he awoken? In my opinion, was he Illumina? He never pursued money. All he wanted was to give people free energy, but he unfortunately died alone in his hotel room. Yeah, you know, Tesla is kind of, in my view, a pretty simple, very simple man to understand. I've been working on character archetypes for quite some time. These different archetypes that I've been graphing out on like an XY axis of activity. I mean, they're multi-dimensional XY axes, but they lay over each other like glass slides, you know, each one having an XY axis with different traits and activity levels and stuff like that. And it's sort of tied to astrology. When I was doing this stuff just from a sheer mathematics and like psychology standpoint, I realized that it was tied into astrology. And you have like hot and cold, you know, active versus inactive. And I was doing it like +1, -1. That's when I woke up. It was when I realized that astrology and psychology and, you know, math, and you start trying to use math to map out how human beings' minds work, and it's all... You realize that the ancient people had their shit together way more than we can imagine, and they were really expressing these things in the best way of doing that. But Tesla was he was a very left-brain dude. His right brain was super empowered at imagining left brain stuff, so he could understand and imagine. His imagination was second to none. I mean, Tesla could do experiments in his head and figure out, you know, if things were going to work. I mean, Thomas Edison was all about doing 1,000 experiments and failing. And then, you know, he's like, well, now I found 999 ways that didn't work. I succeeded in that. That was the message of Edison, is beat your head against the wall 1,000 times and you're still succeeding 1,000 times in finding something that didn't work. Tesla's message was lay in bed and imagine this shit. And put your imagination to work and focus on your imagination, and you can see it going through. And I've done this, and it's fucking crazy. But once you get your imagination dialed into a point, you can do that. You can imagine if you're building like a workbench or something like that. You know, you can imagine all the pieces of wood, all the screws, the angles, and everything in detail, and you can imagine how these things would work. And then how they wouldn't, you know? You can imagine this thing falling apart in your head. But we tend to draw it out on paper, or not even draw it out and just start building a workbench, and then all of a sudden the whole thing falls apart. But Tesla was definitely awake, as awake as it gets. But he only got the left brain side of things, in terms of he never connected socially. One of the domains, you know, in the human psyche is our sort of social domain. He never understood the value of human connection. You know, I've read enough Tesla to tell you that he didn't get it. He did not get it. Like, he had no interest in it. You know, I mean, you could speculate that, like, Alan Turing, I mean, somebody who has that amazing... Alan Turing is the only sort of analog for a Tesla that I could think of. You know, obviously different fields of study, but, you know, where you probably, maybe he was a homosexual. You know, maybe we could speculate that, like Alan Turing. But regardless, Tesla never understood the importance of human connection. And it would have been really easy to yeah, some people say he loved a pigeon. Sure, I don't know. I mean, you know, look, if you don't have a husband or a wife or whatever, and you have an animal that you're close to, I mean, I love my dog like it's one of my kids. So if I died, at 70 years old, emaciated in my own bed by myself and had a dog, I mean, people would say I was in love with it too. I think that's kind of ridiculous. Personally, I think it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, listen, so we have like our intellectual, creative sort of surface to us. And we have our social side. The Mayans believe we had 3 different faces. The Chinese believe we had 3 different faces. One that we show the world, one that we show just our friends and family, one that we show ourselves, whatever. There's lots of different ways of looking at the different layers of human psyche and the human spirit and soul. But I look at it and sort of like, you have your own personal internal sort of reflection of self that you look at, and then you have, again, your social outward one, and then there may be a cultural film on top of that of some other douchebag that you pretend to be because you have to or whatever. But Tesla never mastered, in all the internal research that he did, and he's been one of the biggest inspirations to me in my life. His words of looking inward, using your imagination, all that stuff. He's been one of my biggest inspirations by far, because I never would have thought of doing this kind of shit, thought experiments and everything else, without Tesla. But he never understood. I think he probably had an actual brain deformity. Thank God for it, But I think that his brain was not like ours. I mean, I think that he probably didn't, the social parts of his brain didn't talk to the rest of it, I don't think. So socializing just doesn't seem to be a big part of what he was into. Social intimacy, especially. So I think that was Tesla's problem. I think, yeah, too logical, too left brain logical. Maybe logical is not the best word, but the opposite of like the right brain opposite of I don't know. All my brain's talking to itself right now, so I'm not totally sure. But yeah, you're thinking along the right terms. It's a left hemispheric dominance problem that he had for sure. But he was really right-brained in terms of his imagination. But this is something that I've talked about before with like the difference in an artist and an architect, for instance. Like a good architect has the right brain ability to imagine things in the physical domain. So it's a right brain imagination of a left brain concept, which it factors into my algorithms and stuff well, but I can't really explain it here that well. But yeah, an architect can imagine a building, or like I said earlier, a workbench, and they could imagine if it would work or not. They can imagine a car, if you were to engineer a car or something like that. Like, this is how engineers' minds work. They can imagine, material or physical things. But Tesla never created any artwork. That is the right brain doing right brain work on a right brain concept, right? So imagining with your right brain things that are not real, Monet and Picasso and Cezanne and people who were doing Renoir, who were doing abstract shit, Jackson Pollock. These are right brain people that were able to create, and maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe the imagination is, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, even my kids, when they talk about it, they make more sense than that. Yeah. Being able to imagine left brain or right brain things. I think that's the key. If you're an architect, you can imagine real world structures and substances within the confines of the laws of physics. Your right brain being, your imagination being your third eye. Yeah, that's what that is. And whenever you have your artists, are more of your imagination of right brain concepts, things that are not real. Tesla was too logical, too left brained in that regard. That was the longest answer ever. Sorry, the shrooms kicked in. But I'm feeling better already. I'm going to go cough up a bunch of phlegm when I get done with you guys. It's going to be beautiful. Let's see. Somebody asked, is weed positive? Is weed a good thing? So that's a should question. Should you use weed, right? And I just talked about this the other day, and I'll keep talking about it. It's kind of a new, fun conversational toy, I've got a new philosophical toy to play with, and it is the art of turning turning everything you can into a should question, because a should question is then going to be associated with an if outcome, like, should you smoke pot? Well, you should if, and then you can finish the rest of that sentence. A lot of people, would say, well, you shouldn't smoke weed if you want to, be, well, nah, I would say, yeah. If you need it for relaxation, then it's a good thing. You should smoke weed if you want to relax. You don't want to develop an opioid addiction. You should smoke it if it helps you with your seizures, because it's going to help with that too. You should smoke weed if it doesn't impair your responsibilities. Yeah, Third Eye Navigator just hit that. Thanks for the help there. Brain's doing the shroomy thing where staying on task is not not exactly the easiest. But yeah, I mean, if it, I think it's irresponsible sometimes for us to act like marijuana doesn't do anything negative, or doesn't have any potentially negative consequences on a person's life. This is one of these things where the pendulum can potentially swing too far the other direction. We're coming from a society where cannabis has been demonized and made it illegal, and people's lives have been ruined over it. So we're really quick, now that more people are on the train, we're really quick to say, well, no, it's totally amazing. Like, weed's the best thing ever, and it can't hurt you, and you could smoke 50,000 pounds of it, and it has no negative consequences, and no one's ever died from it ever. Like, yeah, most of that's true, but I mean, if you abuse anything, it can have a negative impact on your life. And I think for especially like people who have not developed a lot of structure in their life, and developed like me, I didn't smoke pot in my early 20s. I didn't smoke for 10 plus years, all through my 20s. And so I learned how to run a business and organize my life and be a father and, just be a productive member of society while not using anything to deal with that. You know what I mean? Except for occasionally Xanax, right? And I didn't even drink for a lot of that time, but finally I started drinking, later on. But if you have the skills to deal with life, with your life, and you've got all that stuff in order and structure and everything else, then yeah, no, pot's probably fine. But I think that anytime you use any substances outside of your own body, and this is where I think I step on a lot of people's toes, is that I don't think that, like, I think that if your life is I don't want to diminish the importance of cannabis or the benefits of cannabis or anything else, because I certainly enjoy cannabis as much as anybody, and psychedelics for me. But if your life is in such a way that you need daily use of any substance, other than what your body requires to survive, I think that you could potentially at least need to take a look and evaluate your life and say, like for me, it was alcohol. Like, if I had to drink 3 scotches a day or 2 scotches a day at the end of my day to deal with things, then maybe my life was the problem. Maybe it was just my shit was not under control. And a lot of people like to say that, that this doesn't apply to cannabis for some reason, which I don't understand. I mean, cannabis is 1 billion times safer than alcohol or anything ever could be, but that doesn't mean that it can't be abused. I can tell you right now that, like, I went 2 weeks without smoking weed, and I just started doing it 2 nights ago, and I went 2 weeks without it. And let me tell you what happened. My brain was a little bit clearer. It was. But it was just the same difference as going from not eating meat or eating meat to not eating meat. That was the same type of thing too. My brain's a lot clearer when I don't eat meat. My brain's a lot clearer when I eat a lot of veggies and salads and all that stuff. When I removed pot from my diet for 2 weeks, my head did get a little bit clearer. It was kind of interesting. I had a little bit more energy. I did have a little bit more energy. But I'll tell you what else happened is that I actually, and it won't happen again this way now that I know to look out for this, but this was the most amazing thing. If this is so important. I was having creative blockages. Not even creative blockages. I just wasn't being creative. I just couldn't create anything. And I didn't know why. And I was confused. I was like, why am I not able to sit down and write, or do anything that was creative, And then I got high, and I was like, damn, now I want to go create something. Now I want to go write. Now I'm going to go work on the books and everything else. And it really does. I think it helps someone like me, who has one foot in the corporate world and one foot in outer space or inner space or whatever you want to call it. And, it helps me break through to get back to, wow, you guys have a lot of great things to say. I'm going to have to stop and read all this stuff to everybody. I'm actually going to do this on the podcast here, you guys. So I'm not going to associate your names with it if you don't want me to. But here we have, weed helps me let go of all the pressures and worries society causes and breaks down those constructs and helps me just enjoy the moment. See, that is a big thing that it does for me too. I enjoy my time with my kids better, I think, sometimes. Like if I'm really stressed out from work, I enjoy myself better when I have cannabis. But that also goes back to what I've said, or what I'm saying too, is that like if your life is constantly the pressures and worries of society are the problem, then you remove those pressures and worries, And a lot of times that takes a career change, or that takes relationship changes or whatever else. But that's my point. That's my point, is that I've been through a lot of the challenges and struggles and stuff in my own life. And I'm like, damn, I wish I had cannabis at that point in my life, to help me get through a lot of that stuff easier, instead of just dealing with just the mad panic of being just stressed to the fucking hilt. But I didn't. And so I had to develop coping mechanisms. And so what stresses most people out doesn't stress me out. I mean, the amount of stress that I deal with on a regular basis is probably a lot more than what a lot of people do, but it's because I didn't have cannabis all through my 20s. I didn't hardly even really drink alcohol. So it's, I hear you, but I still maintain that, like, reducing, it's like any other illness. Stress is an illness. And if, instead of treating the illness, you reduce the cause. And then we have, I've stopped for like a month, and I felt like I couldn't control my thoughts, like I didn't know what to think about. I really don't know how to explain it. Well, no, I get you. I know what you're saying. Too much clouds the brain, affects dream recall. Yeah. Ash, I'm right on there with you. Yeah, too much cannabis clouds the brain, and it's easy to build yourself up to a dependence where you have to take in a lot to get stoned, and it definitely messes with dream recall the next day for me. And I heard that. Oh, look at that, getting the yawns. Wonder why that is. Yeah, I can see some tears running down my face here in just a minute. Give that just a minute. But yeah, you. I think we got to be careful about how much we advocate that, like, just unbridled pot use is always okay under every circumstance for every single person. I don't think that's a healthy, responsible way to treat it. Sorry guys, I got distracted by the sound phone behind my phone that I'm staring at here. But yeah, you can't turn a blind eye to the very real possibility that whenever you're using a substance on a daily basis, it could be having potentially some sort of effect on you. But to me, what's more important than that is understanding, like I said a moment ago, that if you are having to treat yourself for anything on a daily basis, then you should probably treat the cause and not the symptoms, right? Stress is a symptom of a problem. So if you're having to smoke pot to deal with that stress every day, get rid of the stress by getting rid of the cause. That's what I did. Everybody I know who's happy and who has a more of a stress-free life than they used to, that's how they did it. You just go get rid of the stress. Then you just, stop. Well, diabetes, insulin, I won't go there. Yeah, go out in nature. Spend more time in nature. Oh, you are a gem to our world. That is so sweet. You guys. But the stuff that you guys say to me, man, it really does empower me and give me encouragement. So please know that. I appreciate it. And I hope that you guys are saying these types of things to each other as well. And I hope that you're being the kinds of people that that leave people feeling like they want to tell you this stuff. Because at the end of the day, that's the point. You know? Be nice to people. Be worthy of compliments and surround yourself with people that give them freely. I just came up with that. That's Adam Trimegas on shrooms for you guys right now. Yeah, live in a way that is worthy of compliments. And surround yourself with people who give them freely. Let's see. I was dreaming lucid once, but woke up mid-dream and experienced sleep paralysis. Yeah, you never lucid dreamed after. I've never been able to figure out lucid dreaming or astral projection. Not even on shrooms. Yeah, I those are things I just don't get, but I'm glad other people can. Golly, guys. What else? False awakening. I've had a false awakening in dreams before. I've had the thing where like the sleep paralysis or where you're like awake but not able to move. I've never looked into that like from like a like a shamanic sort of standpoint, or a philosophical standpoint, like actually analyze that internally, like what does that mean, what's happening there, at that singularity where the little ray of light that is the me is poking through from the darkness. I never really thought about that sleep paralysis thing. Sleep paralysis is a gateway to astral travel. Yeah, that makes sense to me because I've never been able to astrally travel, and I've only ever had that sleep paralysis like once, and it was when I was a little kid, or maybe twice. So yeah, no, I believe that like I say, it makes sense now that I'm thinking about it for that to be like a gateway to understanding something deeper about, astrally. I have been researching heavily sound, vibration, energy, and light. Yeah, me too. Me too. I've got it right here, man. Listen to me. Listen to me, guys. If I do nothing else for you, you guys probably can't read this, but it says The Universal One by Walter Russell. Okay, if you do nothing else, if you're interested in understanding light and vibration, dude, this is the book. Hold on. For anybody who's not on the Instagram right now, watching this later, I am flipping through this big ass book trying to show people on my Instagram live feed. Yeah, this stuff is crazy, man. He hand drew all these things, but this is the most elaborate and elegant and comprehensive examination of the nature of God and the universe and reality and vibration and light and consciousness I have ever read. Probably that's ever been written. Guarantee you it is that on the universal scale. There is nothing better. Tesla, when Walter Russell sent that book to Tesla, Tesla said, go lock it up for 1,000 years because human beings are not ready for this information. At least that's how the story goes. I assume it's real. The Universal One by Walter Russell. And this is a book that I bought this book because the legend goes that he sent this to Tesla, and Tesla said, lock it up for 1,000 years. Please don't release it. The human race is not ready to get this information. And I thought maybe that was bullshit. And then I started reading the book, and it throws me into a trance. Like, I can't read more than a few pages at a time because it does. The only other thing that's ever done that to me in that way was reading the Emerald Tablets of Thoth by Dr. Doriel, written around the same time as this, actually. Which it makes it even that much crazier when you read this book and you realize that this guy wrote this like 90 years ago. But this book, if you're interested in Tesla's work in vibration, frequency, light, consciousness, it is the most elegant and beautiful examination of the nature of the universe and God and light. You know what? Fuck it, man. I've got to do this. I'm gonna read a little bit of this to you guys because you just got to share it with people, man. All right, so and I'll put this in separate. Trust God says everybody's talking about their dreams, and he says I'm on the toilet and I piss in the bed. What does that mean? Meanwhile, my mom is saying I hover in my dreams. What does that mean? I don't know. Guys, just so we're clear, dreams are one of my weakest areas. I don't know shit about dreams. I don't know anything about them. James Cameron said something. He said, pay attention to your dreams. You know, they matter. Pay close attention. He said that years ago on Coast to Coast AM, and I heard it, and ever since then, I cared about what my dreams meant, and I've just been constantly fucking confused because I couldn't figure it out. Hey guys, Instagram's about to cut me off. I'm going to go ahead and end this one and open up a new live feed. So if you want in, go ahead and drop out right now, and then I'll end the feed, and then you guys can rejoin the new one. It'll take you about 30 seconds. There'll be about a 30-second delay there. So I'll wait till you guys go ahead and confirm for me you're getting that message, and then I'll jump off. I'll read this. We'll talk about it for a minute, and then we'll bounce. Okay? All right. Love you guys. I'll be right back in just a moment. I'm trying to find a place. If you guys were, yeah, there we go. We're back. Yay! But we have more people, so not everybody knew. I guess everybody got the notification, and we ended up with more people. We've already been going strong for an hour, man. We've been going hard for an hour. We're recording this for the podcast. We were just trying to have a good time, and then you guys just, got out of control. Now we're reading out of Walter Russell's The Universal One, what I have called now the most elegant, thorough, and comprehensive and beautiful, elaborate examination of the nature of God, the universe, light, vibration, and all of existence. While doing this, I'm on a small amount of psilocybin mushrooms. So this has been a true adventure. By the way, my friends who've been on here for the last hour already know that I forgot that I took those. Yeah. Then they kicked in and I lost my train of thought and all of a sudden remembered. That was pretty cool. Okay, so I could probably hop into just about anywhere here and read it because it's just that badass. But I want to see if I can catch something that's particularly... Okay, here. We'll go here. So this is chapter 3, Mind, the one universal substance. Mind. Mind is the universe. It is all that is, ever was, or ever will be. Mind is a substance, a material substance. The substance of mind is the foundation of creation. It is the seed of the universe. In the seed of the universe is the whole of the universe. The substance of universal mind has no beginning, no ending, and no bounds. It is all intelligent, all powerful, and all present. The one substance is absolutely frictionless, temperatureless, non-compressible, non-expandable, non-absorbent, non-reflectant, non-resistant, and non-refractive, but potentially it contains the appearance of all these qualities through the dynamic action of those opposing forces within it, which cause it to be a thinking substance in motion. These qualities belong to motion and appear only through motion and opposition. And what he starts describing here, the beautiful thing about what he's done in this book, I'll read another little excerpt here in just a moment, but what Walter Russell did in this book is so beautiful. He's not a scientist. He wasn't a scientist, I don't think, or he was coming at it from a very different perspective. And he doesn't call matter. He calls it motion and opposition. He says all things are moving, all things are in motion, which we know today is true. But he's describing this when we didn't have electron microscopes and stuff. But he's describing complex shit that like quantum theorists are just now getting to. It's blowing me away. But he just uses different terms. Motion and inertia is actual motion. He describes different states of being, like solid, liquid, gas. They're not different states. These are just different speeds of motion. different vibrational frequencies. And then, there are other ones outside of that. And it makes it so beautiful because he creates a whole new vernacular by which you can start to describe the elements of the universe that you want to describe, And it's not so left brain empirically. It's not like this. You don't have to be a quantum physicist. You don't have to be Michio Kaku, or Brian Greene, or be a freaking astrophysicist to be able to understand the nature of what he's talking about. And I think that's where even Einstein said that if you can't explain what you're trying to explain to a 4-year-old, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But I think the problem is, in our scientific establishment, we've just given into this idea that you have to complicate the shit out of your vocabulary and stuff for it to be legit science. And Walter Russell did a much better job of just breaking that down and writing whole new vocabulary about it. Hold on, let's see. All right, man. So we'll do the prelude, and then I'm going to probably pull this as an excerpt. So if you guys want to listen to this is going to be 1, 2, 3 pages. All right. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to save this for the podcast. I'll pull this out as an excerpt. Let's see. The supreme service which man can render to evolving man is to answer for him dynamically the great heretofore unanswerable question concerning the one universal force which man calls God, or mind, or by other names. For long ages, man has impatiently awaited the knowledge which would tear away the veil from the invisible universe which lies beyond his perception, and bring it within the range of both his perception and his exact comprehension. Mathematical and measurable proof of the existence of but one mind, one force, and one substance would give to man absolute control over matter, the power to create, even as God creates, and within the same limitations. Man is omnipotent when he but knows his omnipotence. Until that day, he is but man. Voltaire said that man could never comprehend God, for man must be God to comprehend him. But man is God, and therefore God is within the comprehension of man. Man is mind. Man is matter. Mind and matter are one. God is mind. This is a universe of mind, a finite universe, limited as to cause, and to the effect of cause. A universe of limitations cannot be infinite. There is no infinite universe. A finite universe, in which the effects of cause are limited, must also be limited as to cause. So, when that measurable cause is known, then can man comprehend and measure all effects. The effects of cause are complex and mystify man, but cause itself is simple. The universe is a multiplicity of changing effects of but one unchanging cause. All things are universal. Nothing is which is not universal. Nothing is of itself alone. Man and mind and all creating things are universal. No man can say, I alone am I. There is but one universe, one mind, one force, one substance. When man knows this in measurable exactness, then he will have no limitations within those which are universal. He will then know that all knowledge exists within man and is subject to his desire to recall it from within his inner mind. Knowledge is not acquired from without, but merely recollected from within. The recollection of knowledge from within is an electromagnetic process of thinking mind, which is exactly under man's control as much as the generation of that same power to turn a wheel. Man must think in light. His thinking must be in terms of the electromagnetic periodicities, which measure all motion. For of such he is himself, and nothing else. To know how to think in light from within is to open the doors to all knowledge. Okay, I'm going to leave that at 1 page. We're going to call that 1 page. But it just goes on, man. It just goes on. Like Walter Russell, this dude tapped into it. And if you read Tesla, he describes this stuff. And I could just imagine the conversation that must have taken place between Walter Russell and Tesla whenever Tesla read this from him. Because, wow. What an incredible What an incredible thing. And I know that Tesla thinks in those terms, or thought in those terms. You know, if you've ever read Tesla, it makes sense. But that was the prelude. It's the fucking prelude. I read you one page of the prelude to the book. He wrote a whole book like that. And the book just goes on. It just goes on. It's mind-blowing, man. It really is. Go out and read it. You know, but what he describes is the idea that everything is just in a different state of vibration. And the thinking mind, the material substrate that makes up all of existence is, you know, we're sort of swimming in this primordial mind goo, you know, is the way that I read that. And, oh yeah, the title is The Universal One by Walter Russell. And I know you guys are probably seeing it backwards, but yeah. Universal One by Walter Russell. 1925, I think. And we're like swimming around in this mind goo, and then there are little thoughts that happen in between empty spaces of mind goo. And that's what everything is, which makes a lot of sense. And then now they're finding, yeah, that guy was eating mushrooms for sure. I don't know how you would, I've thought about this, like I don't know how you would go that deep without being on mushrooms or something. You know what I mean? Like how would you really be able to come up with some crazy shit like that? Like that it's that deep. Like watching Da Vinci's Demons with my girlfriend the other day, you know, and I've done a lot of research on Da Vinci. I mean, I know that that's obviously just a fantasy deal. But like thinking about what he did do, you know, the non-Hollywood pieces of it. But it's like, Jesus, like how would people have even gotten to this level if they weren't using psychedelics? I'm not saying that they did. I'm not demanding that they did or insisting that they did. I'm just saying that if they were able to do it without mushrooms, I would love to have been born with a brain like that. You know what I mean? Because that's crazy. To think that Walter Russell might have come up with the words that I've read so far. I'm only a few chapters in. Yeah, they're geniuses. Yeah, they're geniuses. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. I think that unfettered genius is like the active term there, like unconstrained genius, you know, because we have I think a lot of people could be geniuses, but then we layer a whole bunch of stuff onto them throughout the course of their lives, you know, culture and education systems and, you know, just household stuff, you know. But yeah, how people could come up with stuff like this without psychedelics is just beyond me. I don't know. Maybe they didn't, you know. You ever think about that? There's a lot of symbolism in like the ancient, you know, a lot of ancient art and stuff like that. Not even just the obvious ancient stuff, but like even like Dark Age Christian art and stuff like that, you know, where there's just like, you know, you notice how Jesus, I thought about this. I think about this every time I take mushrooms and like I get really deep into them. If I take a big dose, I think about all of those. I'm going to see if I can find one. Those pictures of Jesus from the Dark Ages where he's all like laid out and his eyes are all like looking up and stuff, you know. You guys know what I'm talking about. Jesus was on mushrooms in those pictures. And I think it's because the artist knew that Jesus was taking mushrooms in real life. And the artists themselves were taking mushrooms because artists take mushrooms. Yeah. You Google Jesus and you get a bunch of crusty cracker white ass people pictures of him, you know, from like modern times, and he looks all like he belongs in a modern church or something. But like, I need a middle-aged Jesus. No, that's the wrong thing. I don't know what to look up. Middle-aged art Jesus. Let's see if that does anything. God. Okay, I shouldn't do this on mushrooms. I'm just going to sit here laughing. Well, yeah, I'm not going to do it. But the point is, you know what I mean. If you go look up some like pictures of Jesus from the Middle Ages and stuff like that, you'll find pictures of him looking like he's on shrooms. And again, I mean, you got to ask yourself, like, why would an artist draw a picture of him doing this, like making these faces? It's like, you know, you can draw a picture of a girl having an orgasm, and you know what that picture is. You can draw a picture of a dude on mushrooms, and if you've taken mushrooms, you know what that is. It's just that face, that giving it up. It's an orgasm face almost, but it's not. It's more of just you're fucking looking to the cosmos for answers. But it's a very particular physiological configuration here, and a lot of Jesus pictures have that. I have never seen the movie The Man from Earth. I'd love to. Sounds cool. Sounds cool. You guys, if you're interested, you should look up the Jesus mushroom thing. My buddy Friend of Man, he's talked a lot about mushroom Jesus. I think that he actually thinks that Jesus is not really a real dude, and that he thinks that he was just a mushroom cult or something. I think, or I don't know exactly what he thinks about Jesus for sure, but I'm pretty convinced that Jesus was a woke dude. And I'm not just saying this to be stupid. Like, I've done a lot of reading on the Gnostic stuff and the Nag Hammadi library and everything, but yeah, Yeshua. But I think it was him and a bunch of friends. They grew up in these astrology cults out in the middle of the desert. You know, they weren't too far from Göbekli Tepe. They knew this stuff. The Sabians and people like that. They were star worshippers. They knew this stuff. And he caught on to, he started the Gnostic movement, you know, or sort of gave it a mouthpiece to some extent, you know. Yeah, sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, Paul Stamets is awesome. Paul Stamets, a mycologist and mushroom guy. But you know, I look at Jesus and his disciples as well. It's kind of funny. Well, I won't get into that, but yeah, Jesus is a monkey on shrooms. Yeah, I don't know. But the thing is, you know, you got a guy that was raised in a very woke household, you know, raised in a very woke household by a mom and a dad that were awake and conscious, as we would call it. Oh, excuse me. And they grew up looking at the stars and studying the star cycles and understanding, you know, Eastern mythology and mysticism and stuff like that, and the yugas and the yuga cycles and you know, which is obviously how the world works. And then so he, you know, would have taken some mushrooms. He would have. And then he would have developed a bunch of friends that wanted to take mushrooms too. I mean, just think about it. Just walk yourself through this process. This is to me like doing a Tesla thought experiment. Is you just walk yourself through the metaphysics of how this would work, and what part of it doesn't make sense. You know, you got a guy that grew up guy that grew up in a woke household. He's going to eat some mushrooms because, you know, I'll make sure that my kids eat mushrooms once they're old enough to do that, you know, and understand the world, and it's legal, and I won't get put in prison for it. But, you know, I'll make sure that they understand that that's, well, I won't make sure, but, you know, I would be happy to do that with them. And so a woke household, no reason to think that Mary and Joseph wouldn't have taken shrooms with their kids when they were older. Oh, I had to stop and read. Yeah, I can't say, you know, I have to say shrooms. So somebody said it would be better than saying shrooms. I think a better term would be psychedelics. Yeah, but here's my sometimes I use the word psychedelics, and I wish that I wouldn't, because I don't, you know, I don't just recommend any psychedelics to any person. But I mean, I recommend shrooms to every human being. Period. Every consenting, responsible, capable-minded, able-minded adult. But yeah, Jesus was just a woke dude. He was a woke dude with his people, with his tribe of people, and they were trying to spread a new message. What were they trying to spread a message of? They said, hey man, the old religions, the old outdated, hateful way of doing things, you know, where we fuck people up and throw gays off rooftops, we don't want to do that anymore. We're going to change it. We're going to change the way we're doing it, man. We're coming to bring a new law, a new understanding of turn the other cheek, one love. Jesus was a woke dude, man. And they built a bunch of friends, and they looked back at all the old religions, and then they looked toward the Eastern religions that weren't even being addressed by the people of the time. And they were like, look, man, we're all telling the same story, but everybody's got a different flavor of tribal bullshit that's been added and that divides people and that people are fighting over. You had Pharisees and Sadducees that were fighting over shit, and then you had the Gnostics come along that were like, neither one of you guys make sense. They were just the independent thinkers, you know? But yeah, they were a whole different, they were just a third independent sect. They were like the libertarians, you know, of the Gnostic world. And so the Gnostic people, they, you know, they were kind of on the outside. And if you read about the Gnostic people, they referred to each other as bro, you know? They called each other brethren, brother, sister. Like, they literally talked like we do. You know, we talk to each other like, hey, what's up, bro? I feel like, you know, you guys are all like my brothers and sisters. And that is literally how the Gnostic texts are written, you know? And that's what's known about them when they talk to each other, which I think is funny, you know? They didn't call each other Mr. this and Mr. that and shit. It was all brethren. So I'll segue from that into Thoth, Hermes, and the Emerald Tablets, because I know that Wolfman would just love if I would do that. Yeah, we're just sitting in a circle. This is like this is fucking awesome. This is what I love, man. But imagine, guys, how much this sucks is that, and I, you know, we have a good core group here for me to say this and express this issue, but it sucks to be censored by Instagram for this reason, because we are just sitting in a circle talking about some, you know, cool, interesting shit that matters to all of us, having a nice, good little powwow. But as soon as we hop off the live, if Instagram has it their way, the video goes away. It just goes away. It's gone. Fortunately, I have the audio recording, at least for the podcast, going on the YouTube channel. So make sure you guys go to the YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Please go subscribe. Please. But this is why we're taking it all to YouTube, and then we're taking that to the website, so we don't have to rely on some third-party censorship crap anymore. But yeah, so Jesus segueing into Thoth and the Emerald Tablets and all that. Hold on, let's see. Nisha here. Can I suggest you a Discord server? People can join your podcast too. I appreciate it. I do. Hold on to that. I may be able to take, you know, I might want to take you up on that. But server stuff is not really so much the problem. I could do a Discord server and everything else if I wanted to. I'm not that I'm not interested in hearing what you have going on. I'd appreciate the offer very, very much. Sun for Snow Girl, you've been bumped twice. Yeah. I think everybody in here reads Terrence McKenna, actually. Yeah, I've been getting stories about people that are trying to follow, trying to comment. They can't comment, they can't follow, they can't do different stuff. Now I hear they're getting bumped off the live feed. They won't let me save my live feed. It's garbage, man. We have got to start building the big following on the YouTube channel. It's in my bio. Please go. Also, Wolf Bullman, peace out from the universe and the North, brother. Love your spirit, body, and soul, brother in arms. He's a big crazy Viking. I'll tell you what, if I ever get rich enough to the point that I needed a bodyguard for any reason, Wolf Bullman would be one of the first people I would call to be my bodyguard. I got so much bro love for that guy. He's the best guy in the world, and he's a big scary Viking. And he swims in the Arctic waters. He lives up north of the Arctic Circle, and he posts beautiful pictures and stuff of the northern lights and what it's like living on the beach right next to the Arctic Ocean, or I guess it's not the Arctic Ocean, whatever it is up there. Whatever it is that Viking people swim in when it's cold as shit outside. But, oh yeah, so Thoth, Hermes. Man, would it be too much of a cop-out to tell you that we need to just do a whole episode on this? I'll tell you what, I'll give you a little taste of it. I think Thoth is sort of, if you're familiar with the Akashic Records, I think Thoth resides in that domain. I think Thoth is a particular, call him almost a channelable character that, yeah, what I'll tell you is that if you like reading the tablets, read the Universal one from Walter Russell, the one I've been reading you guys, because it's the only other book I've ever read besides the tablets that put me into a trance after I read it for a little bit. I go into a trance after I read it, man. Like couple of pages, and I can't go any further. It's written in such beautiful meter and using so much truth. It's just truth, man. It's pure mainlining truth. It's crazy. So to keep on the Thoth thing, because that's what we're gonna try to. I'm gonna try to do a better job of keeping on task, interacting with you guys, and responding to every single message as it comes out. Is the most derailing, distracting thing ever. So Thoth, I don't think was a. I think there may have been a person, originally in Egypt named Thoth, but I would prefer not to say it that way. I would prefer to start with Hermes, and say that I think that Hermes was a Greek philosopher that went to Egypt and discovered Thoth, and Thoth is actually the Egyptians discovered a much higher, or deeper, more cosmic character, and Thoth is the idea. Or Thoth is like this construct of pure thought, pure truth. They call him the architect of truth. God, it's the deepest, most complex thing I could think to get into. I'm gonna have to do maybe we'll shoot a documentary on it or something like that. But man, I would love to smoke and dose with you too, man. All you guys. Once we get the website really, go to the website now if you want to. The rabbit hole on there is pretty cool. But once we get the whole website community really centralized and we can all just sit around a fire and bullshit, I want to get, info on where you guys are, and we can start maybe having some things. I don't have any problems, moving around, going and traveling and doing stuff. I'll go drive somewhere or fly somewhere and we can go chill and hang out, big group of us. I'd love to do that, We just got to get enough people. We got to grow this community to a point where we got enough people to do it. Like, I'm going to see Sam Harris in Dallas on March 3rd, but he's got 500,000 YouTube subscribers. We got to get there. We got to spread the love. But anyway, yeah. So I think the Egyptians were onto something, and they took enough psychedelics to get to a point where they realized that there is this sort of pure truth that can be channeled. I don't see it as a character, but it's a lot easier to describe as a character. That's what the thing is about mythology, is that you don't, if you really understand it, that it's not character, it's not a person, it's not a character. But then when you really understand it beyond that well enough to teach it, that's the thing, is most people can understand principles of life and how to live well without having to personify any ideals or any archetypes or whatever. But if you want to teach it, it becomes a whole different thing. If you want to teach it to people, then it becomes a different deal. So I think Thoth was the original Egyptian archetype of truth, thought. And whenever Tesla and other people are tapping deep into the mysteries, that's sort of what they're channeling into. Again, I really don't know how to explain this, man, because I don't know that I fully understand it, but I've done it, I've done it. I've written some stuff, in particular 2 different poems that I wrote while under, in a similar mind state to where I'm at right now, like a microdose of mushrooms, and before I ever read the Emerald Tablets. And when I went and read the Emerald Tablets, they were written in identical, it's like it was written by the same person, So Doriel, they say that he was channeling Thoth. Or he claims he was channeling Thoth when he wrote the tablets. A lot of people say he was just plagiarizing H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that. Look, I've looked into the H.P. Lovecraft stuff that Doriel supposedly plagiarized whenever he wrote the Emerald Tablets, and they're not obvious plagiarisms. But what is obvious to me is that Lovecraft and a lot of those people at that time were tapping into Thoth, truth, thought. They were tapping into that deeper understanding of how things are in a structured way. And it's kind of like if, I show you a picture of a stick figure holding a dandelion, and then I show it to 20 other people, and you all walk away and tell the same story, you can call that plagiarizing or whatever you want, but that's not really what it is. Just because once you've tapped into that source, that core of knowledge, of structured knowledge, and then you channel the ability to come back and report it in a in a concise, measured way. I think that's what Thoth is, and I think Hermes. I think there was probably an Egyptian. I think all of Egyptian society probably got that, the priesthood. But then I think the Greeks had a Hermes philosopher or something like that, and he went to Egypt and figured it out, and that's where you got the morphology of that. But the Sumerians got it too. They had Ningishizda, and the Hindus had Brahma. It's all the same stuff. If you read all the mythologies, Brahma is Ningishizda from the Enuma Elish, is Hermes of the Greeks, is Mercury of the Romans, is Thoth of the Egyptians. But the Egyptian, I like the Egyptian version best, and I think it's just for a lot of it's just preference, there's not as much about Brahma in like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana and the Vedas and stuff. There's there's different accounts of Brahma in there, but the Egyptians were different, and the Greeks especially wrote on the Egyptian concept. Really, what the Greeks were doing is writing on the Egyptian concept of Thoth. And now Ash here in the chat is saying that Odin is another example. I've done a lot of Norse mythology, like looking at Norse mythology when I was younger. I need to go back and dig into it. But I don't know. Everybody says that Odin is the same thing as Thoth, and I just don't know that maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. Not sure. Ishmael, you have so many questions. Yeah, no. So for Thoth, I think that's it. I mean, Thoth, it's kind of like Jesus to me. Like I like personifying Jesus in my mind. I always felt a connection with Jesus when I was a kid. I think for obvious reasons, being in a Judeo-Christian sort of society, a Christian society as a kid, and going to Christian churches and stuff. But I never saw Jesus. Excuse me, guys. Shroom's talking to me. Shroom yawn. But I never saw Jesus as this judgmental, Abrahamic God, And, I think that it would be very, very difficult to look at the Jesus character and see any resemblance to this judgmental, jealous, masochistic, fictional character of the Old Testament in the Abrahamic God. But Thoth is a similar thing for me, I like seeing Thoth as a person. I like to summon him as a personage when I'm, deep on 6, 7, 8 grams of shrooms or something like that. Which I am aware in my consciousness is only for my own comfort. It's only something that I'm seeing as a construct so that my mind can parse it better. It's just more of a processing tool that I've developed when I'm on a really deep dose of shrooms, is I can personify Thoth. But it's really just this beautiful, truthful design of the universe. It's truth personified. That's what Thoth is to me, and I think to the Egyptians too. So that's Thoth, known by a lot of names. If you go to the website shamanicphilosophy.com, I've got a rabbit hole on there, and you can go watch videos that I've watched and that I liked and added to my playlists. And one of the things I was thinking of in the midst of all that is Manly P. Hall did a great video on Thoth, and it's on the website. I linked it on my YouTube. Or actually no. All you got to do is go to the YouTube channel. Go to the Shamanic Philosophy YouTube channel even. And I guess you can access my playlist through there. And if you can, Manly P. Hall got his own playlist. I've got an Ancient Civilizations playlist, Magic and Esotericism. I struggle with the naming of that one. I feel like maybe I should call it Hermeticism and Magic or something. I don't know. You guys tell me. I'll take your feedback. I've got Philosophy, Neuroscience, and Consciousness. And then Terrence McKenna has his own playlist on my YouTube channel. And Manly P. Hall has his own. So yeah. If you want to get a really good look at it, I think Manly P. Hall did a good job looking at Thoth, Hermes, Trismegistus as a character. Trimegus is my that triangular thing. That's sort of my brand behind the whole thing. Anyway, guys, I am out of here. You guys have been amazing. Go check the YouTube channel, subscribe, like, share, comment, all that stuff. Your feedback here live is so appreciated. And I'm sorry that Instagram is kind of throttling us back, but we won't let it stop us. We're still going to do this and enjoy our time together. So go do your thing. Go on about your week. Go try to lift somebody up. Thanks for sticking around. And may the light be upon you guys. May peace be within you, and may you be a sun on the paths of all men. I mean that. Go have an awesome week, guys. I love you so much. I'm so thankful for you. God bless you guys. Take care.
Wake up from this dream and build a world we plan to keep with the day.